Hi everyone. On today's activity, you're going to be exploring slope and intercept. You'll need to access the website that I shared in the link. It's linked in your document. It's also shared in Google Classroom. When you get to the website, graphing slope intercept, you want to click on the left icon as I pointed out in the directions for slope intercept. Now, we need to explore, as you already took some time to do, with the movement of these points along different places of this XY coordinate to find out patterns we notice in the change of the slope and the y-intercept of this equation. Notice we have the equation y equals 2/3 x plus 1 to begin with as the default. The graph has a nice little visual where we see here the numerator or the rise of that slope is 2, and then the denominator in the fraction or the run here is 3. We get the nice little graphic visual of what the fraction looks like in our graph. And if, let's say I wanted to create the same equation, but with different values, here we have the fraction 4/6. In other words, the rise is 4, the run is 6. However, you'll notice right over here, it's still the same equation because it is still the same line. And that's because when you reduce 4/6, dividing both values by 2, you get 2/3, 2/3. So there is a way to still get the same line with different values in the fraction here. So keep in mind, the simplified version of your equation will always be next to the line on the graph. However, you can mess with these numbers as needed to try to attain the desired line that you're supposed to be graphing. So you can move these numbers either by increasing, decreasing. You can change them as needed to find the line that you're supposed to be graphing, or you can just simply drag and drop these points around the graph. I'm going to start by dragging this blue point, and I'm trying to create this line y is equal to 2. So I just want to see what happens as I move the blue point around. If I move it down, let's see, what do we get? It's still not y equals 2 or anything that seems to look like it. I'll just keep moving it, see what happens. Oh, wait a minute. Y equals -1? Okay. It's not y equals 2, but it is y equals a number, which is the setup of these three equations. Y equals 2, y equals -3, y equals 0. They all start with y equals and then a number. So it seems to start with that pattern. Now I need to get this equation to give me y equals 2 instead of y equals -1. Well, if I move it down, will that give me what I need? No, that goes further into the negatives. Okay, let me move up. And notice I'm just thinking aloud the way you should be thinking through the process. So here I get to y equals 2. There we go. That's my first equation. I can use the save feature here. I save line. Now I can start moving this point again to get my new line. Now I just realized that I can move the purple point to change the value that I need in my equation. I'm trying to get to y equals -3. Okay, let me move that down to the -3 along this y-axis. Okay, now I have y equals -3. Nice. Save that line. I need my third line. So I just found out the pattern. All I need to move now is this purple point. Now that I realize, as long as I have my purple and blue point aligned from left to right, I get this equation where y equals a number. Now I have my 3 lines. I'm ready to take a screenshot. Remember, on your document, if you're using your Chromebook, you can go to this link, take a partial screenshot to learn how to take a screenshot of just the graph here, and then insert it into your document. If I was going to take a screenshot of that portion of this page, I go ahead and select the keys on my keyboard for the shortcut. I'm going to now highlight over the area I want to select. I cut off my X by a bit there. It's okay, though. I have everything else in my graph which is needed, which is important. I have all lines which I was supposed to graph. Y equals 2, y equals -3, y equals 0. I can take my screenshot and go insert this into my Google document right here. Now that I've copied my graph from my screenshot that I saved in my files, in my downloads, I can insert it by pasting it here. Now I have it as a part of my document. I'm ready to go ahead and reflect on what patterns I notice. What conclusion can you determine about graphs of equations of the form y equals some number? Well, what do you notice here? What is special about the relationship of these lines? What is special about the direction of those lines? Dig into your vocabulary of words that describe these lines and go ahead and use those to describe the pattern you notice. Then repeat this process for the rest of the sections. Notice the equations for the next problem begin with y equals x. Y equals x, y equals x plus 2, y equals x minus 3, y equals x plus 5. To get you started on that one, I will go ahead and erase my lines here and give you that very first one. If you don't remember this parent function or parent equation for y equals x with other values, y equals x is like this here. The reason for this is the slope is 1 over 1, which 1 divided by 1 is just 1, right? And we do not need to actually write the 1 in front of x. That's why we don't write it when we write the equation y equals x. But it is implied, remember, from our discussion last week. There is a 1 here, invisible 1. How much is being added to this? Nothing. What's the value that represents nothing? 0. So this is the way we write it if we want to include a numerator, denominator, and the y-intercept. But technically, once you simplify it, this is the simple way of writing out your equation y equals x. Now that you have this equation, remember, you save your line and start moving around either the blue point, purple point, whatever you need to move to create the next set of lines. And once you have those all in place, take your screenshot, insert your graph, and start describing the patterns you notice about the shapes of these lines in relation to one another, noticing that they all start with y equals x, and then use that description that you came up with, that pattern, to make sense of what the line for the following two equations would look like. Y equals x plus 50 and y equals x minus 100. And then again, continue the rest of the sections using this tool as a guide.